Hey movie lovers, Iris is here, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to compare two movies. The 1987 German film Wings of Desire, directed by Wim Wenders, who you probably may know as a director of Perfect Days and Paris, Texas, with its American remake from 1998, City of Angels. Stick around if you're interested to know how these two films tell the similar story and yet feel worlds apart. But before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe if you are new here so you never miss a new video. Directed by Wim Wenders, who I'm actually a very big fan of, especially after watching Perfect Days. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend you doing so because it is an amazing movie and it's a rather new one. And the way Wim Wenders is able to build up and create this atmosphere, like his movies feel like an immersive experience, and that's why I really love him. So Wings of Desire is a German film which is set in Berlin before the fall of Berlin Wall. This movie is infused with European artistic sensibilities and topics of melancholy and existential reflection, and also this tension between spiritual and physical worlds. And of course it is very strongly influenced by political and cultural climate in Cold War era Germany. And when we're looking at City of Angels, it's just a completely different setting. Of course, this movie is set in Los Angeles because they thought that maybe it's a great idea to set a movie about angels in Los Angeles. I actually didn't like that part. And basically this movie is it has a more commercial, mainstream Hollywood vibe to it. And it's obviously the genre is very different. It's more like a melodrama, like a very straightforward melodrama. And because it is set in Los Angeles in modern-ish, because it's the 90s, the end of the 90s, modern-ish America, it's just a very different type of movie. Wings of Desire follows two angels, Danielle and Cassiel, who observes people. They live alongside people in Berlin, and they comfort them, they observe them, but they never interact with them directly. And that's why I loved the original more. I loved this border of this line that was built between these two worlds, spiritual and physical world. And Danielle falls in love with a trapeze artist. Her name is Marion, and I loved the way they showed their connection from the beginning, from the first time he sees her to basically the last moment, to the finale. And just in general, we see her as a trapeze artist, and she's wearing this costume like an angel, and she's just swinging in the air, and it's just it's very significant detail. It's a very significant detail. And Danielle, he decides to fall, quote unquote fall. He decides to feel and to live this life as a human, but his decision isn't straightforward. We can see how it builds up. We can see how he comes to the terms that he is ready to give up basically his existence as an angel and come back as a human. But it's not only because of his love for Marion. There are so many complex moments why he makes this decision. And that leads me to City of Angels, because in City of Angels, again, we see an angel. His name is Seth this time, although the second angel, who is let's say his friend, they left the same name. He's still Cassiel. So basically Seth also observes the city of Los Angeles, the people, but he interacts with them more directly. We can see that he is helping them, and we didn't see this part in Wings of Desire. So Seth falls in love with Maggie, who is a heart surgeon, and I didn't understand why they have decided to change her like profession. Like I kind of do, but at the same time I'm like, why? And she's a heart surgeon, and his decision to be a human, to live a life as a human, is primarily based on his love for Maggie. Like we don't see like this process of him coming to these terms that he is ready to become a human. It takes just less time, and he mostly does it because of his love for Maggie, and I didn't really like this part. But of course, City of Angels is just like a melodrama, and it focuses more on this like emotional connection rather than on like big philosophical ideas. I absolutely loved the tone of Wings of Desire, but if you are a big fan of European cinema, of art house European cinema, then you know what I mean, because it is so like, it's dark at times, and it's melancholic and very poetic and philosophical, of course, and the pacing is very slow, so it's not for everyone. But because of this pacing, because of the slow pacing, we are able to reflect, and we are able to just feel and look through more carefully the inner like world of each character and of the whole city itself, because in Wings of Desire, Berlin is a very important, like it becomes the character itself. So basically, yes, like it's an amazing example of how to build up this atmosphere and how to show this interaction. Like the fact that this movie is set in Berlin is absolutely justified because of this Berlin Wall. As I said, it's set before the fall of Berlin Wall. So because of this wall, we kind of, it is like a symbol of this division. Like the world is divided, and like to like spiritual and physical world, but we also see this like division, emotional division. And also this movie has this tone of like longing and also of memory. We see other characters, and we see them, and we hear their thoughts, because that's why I loved this film like so much. It's because of its like narration. We're going to talk about narrative just a little bit later, but I loved that we hear their voices like angels, like Damiel and Cassel do, and I really loved it. And when we're looking at City of Angels, of course, it's a completely different tone. It is more mainstream Hollywood style. As I said, it works as a melodrama, which actually has some tragic, of course, moments as well, but it has just a completely different tone, and we can see it in color palette, we can see it, of course, in the way it was shot, and it focuses more on this like emotional connection, specifically between Seth and Maggie. That's why I didn't really like this film. Like there are a lot of reasons why I didn't like it, but it was one of them, because we don't see and we don't feel like other characters. Like they are there, but they don't really do much. And in Wings of Desire, like there are so many interesting side characters, and as I said, Berlin itself is just like the main character in that film. The cinematography of Wings of Desire is so distinctive. Like it is filled with these contemplative shots and scenes with this stillness, and it's obviously black and white, and I loved it so much. There were so many scenes while watching this film. I was just like, oh my god, like that's like the scene itself is like a work of art. Like I would like to rewind and watch it again, because it's just so beautiful. And as I said, it is black and white, but we can see the transition in color. Like we see colored scenes when like Damiel like enters kind of the human world, and in human world like the color is richer, and I really loved the way they made those transitions. And just in general, you know, they have used kind of like like a documentary style, because as I said, like angels, they are observing Berlin and its inhabitants, and it looks and feels as if it is like a documentary, and I loved it so much. Like, it's such a genius idea, and obviously we are able to see a lot of different people, a lot of different characters. We hear their thoughts and in the moment, like what they're thinking about, and it's just so beautifully and innovative. And as I said, it's a work of art. Like, it's definitely a work of art, and I would really love to rewatch it, because I am sure I will find a lot more interesting moments in this film that I didn't like pay attention at the first time. And of course, speaking of City of Angels, it has a very commercial and very like Hollywood, like polished Hollywood style, and the dynamic is much more like, the dynamic is faster, it's much straightforward, and we can see these like more bright colors. Of course, the palette is very different. We see a lot more dark colors in this movie, and it's kind of like warmth. You can see that the light, of course, is very different. We have more of warm colors, palettes, and like it's not a bad thing. It's just it's a different movie. Like, I think by now we understand that it's a very different movie. Like, the story, the core is kind of similar, but at the same time it's a very different movie. And of course it was shot and it was set in a very different location, and it's just, it's just a good cinematography. I can't say that I saw scenes that mesmerized me, that surprised me. Just a nicely shot movie. As I said, in Wings of Desire, angels are more passive observers, and I think that it really works like beautifully, and that's why this film was specifically set in Berlin, because of that wall, because of this border between spiritual and physical world. We see them being quiet observers, but they comfort the inhabitants of the city. They can basically just, tap you, touch you on the shoulder, and you would feel better. And they are listening to people's thoughts, and I think that it works really beautifully for the whole story. Of course, we were able to see other angels. They gathered together in like a library, and it's again one of the most beautiful scenes in that movie. I would love to rewatch it because of the atmosphere that it has. And when Daniel becomes a human, like his transition, I think is showed so much better. Like the acting performance was absolutely spot on. Like before that his transition, I was kind of tense. Like from the beginning I felt this tension, and when he transits, I just started smiling, and he's smiling, and you can see this like difference in the character, like within the character, and it was beautifully done by an actor who played the main part. And I actually didn't see the same like thing in City of Angels, because I didn't mention, but City of Angels, in the City of Angels, two main parts. The part of Seth was played by Nicolas Cage, and Maggie is played by Meg Ryan. And like, it was nice to see Nicolas Cage in melodrama, but like I don't see the difference between him being an angel and him being a human. Like, kind of like at the beginning, yes, he's very like he's in this like solitude, and he is maybe melancholic a little bit and like sad, but then when he transits, of course he looks like happier, but I didn't see the same level of acting performance to show this transition, because those are two completely different creatures, like being an angel and being a human and experiencing everything for the first time. And we know Nicolas Cage, he likes to, I guess, like overact sometimes, so it didn't really love the way it was performed, but they have a good chemistry with Meg Ryan. Like, I think, like they had, I think, a decent chemistry. I think it's like very like I think you understand by now that I'm definitely on the side of the original, because I just don't understand how can you take something like, how can you take such story, such complex story that tries to talk about so many things, and like this movie is mostly about the atmosphere. Like really, when you're watching it, you feel everything. You feel everything that director wanted you to feel. And that's why we love movies. They make us feel. And in Wings of Desire, you definitely get this experience. So it's about the story, but also about atmosphere. It's about everything. It's like the mixture of things. And like City of Angels basically lacks in every aspect. So I just don't really understand who thought that it was a good idea to make a remake of a movie like Wings of Desire. I understand that this story, like City of Angels, was probably seen by more people because it's like a Hollywood melodrama. It was quite acclaimed by viewers. It wasn't really acclaimed by critics, but viewers liked it because I think it's a nice movie, like for one night. Maybe not. Maybe there are a lot of fans who like to rewatch this film, but like it's a very, let's say, it's a very viewer-friendly movie. Like it's an audience-friendly movie, whereas Wings of Desire is obviously not. It's an art house European movie, but still, like, who thought that it was a good idea to do the remake of such film? Like I don't know, I'm puzzled. Let's talk about soundtrack, and this time let's start with City of Angels, because they have used, of course, more pop rock songs that were popular at the time, and they aimed to use the songs that would be able to kind of evolve and to evoke this atmosphere, you know, of love and romance. And of course, I'm very grateful that they have used my favorite song, Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. I love this song so much, and I loved, yes, the way like the songs they have chosen for the movie, like they work within the story, and they kind of help to evoke the key like emotional elements. But speaking about Wings of Desire, like the soundtrack again was something else. Like it was so eclectic. They used classical music, contemporary music, and I loved the original score. I loved how it was meditative and poetic, of course, and it really really helped to build up the atmosphere of the whole story. And of course, like Nick Cave and Bad Seeds. Like when I saw Nick Cave and Bad Seeds and heard them singing, I was just so confused, and yet like I was confused and happy at the same time. And I saw a very funny comment online. I don't know where. I think like on Letterboxd. I saw a comment that angels meet at the concert of Nick Cave and Bad Seeds, and I just loved it. And they really do. And like these parts with Nick Cave's like performances, he actually performs in this movie. They were sensational. Like I loved it so much. It was that like part of a movie where I just couldn't hold my smile. I was just, you know, sitting and smiling. And when I saw Nick Cave performing on the stage, like in a kind of like a club in Berlin, like I was so happy, I was so excited, and it worked. Like it blended so beautifully with the story, with the setting, with everything. So yeah, I wouldn't say that A City of Angels has bad soundtrack, because they, as I said, like the songs that they have chosen to use, they work. But like again with Wings of Desire, it was just something else. It was like next level. I would also like to talk about like dialogues and narration, the way like it works in both movies. I personally, of course, didn't find anything very innovative in City of Angels. Like, it's not a bad thing, it's just not a very innovative. It wasn't really interesting. It's very straightforward, very direct, because the story focuses more on like this romantic connection between Maggie and Seth. So it's not like a very, it's not filled with a lot of quotes that you are going to take out from the movie with you. Like, it's not a type of movie that you are going to go on like IMDb and look through the quotes afterwards. At least not in my case. But with Wings of Desire, it is very famous for its like very philosophical ideas and dialogues, specifically one dialogue which turns into monologue between Damiel and Cassiel, where they basically talk about how they would love to, what they would love to do if they were people, and it's just beautiful. And this voiceover narration, we are constantly hearing people's thoughts, and also they use, I think it's a poem, like they use this kind, they start over and over again, if the child was a child, when the child was a child, yes, when the child was a child. And it works so beautifully, and just like the ideas that were brought up in this film, and the way it was, like the narrative, the way it worked, I think it was like very, very innovative. And I loved that every like pieces, they make this big picture, like you can just glue together and they make this full picture. Although at times this movie isn't very like viewer friendly to watch. So I'm not going to spoil you the way those films end if you haven't seen them, but I just want to say that there are two very different like endings. And again, that was the reason why I preferred one movie to the other, simply because I think that in one case the ending wasn't really necessary. I mean, no, it was necessary because they have chosen this path. They have decided to turn this film into something else. And of course, I'm talking about the City of Angels, and the way like the kind of like the finale of this movie is understandable, but not because of the idea, just because of, as I said, because of the path they have chosen. They have decided to turn it into like melodrama / drama, and like the ending, I guess, was necessary. But in Wings of Desire, well, it doesn't end the way it does in like City of Angels. So in general, I would like to say one more time that I'm definitely here on the side of the original. I think it's a masterpiece, and I know it's one of the most highly acclaimed movie of Wim Wenders. And if you have seen Perfect Days, or if you have seen Paris, Texas, but you have never seen Wings of Desire, please do, because it is a masterpiece. I personally believe it is a masterpiece. I saw so many very interesting moments in that film. I loved the way it was shot, I loved the story, I loved the characters, I loved acting performances, the atmosphere, the soundtrack. Just as I said, everything just works so beautifully together. So when you take something that works so well and you decide to make a remake of that, I don't really believe it was necessary. Like, Wings of Desire came out in 1987 and City of Angels came out in 1998, and that's just so, like, that's little time. I have a video on my channel where I talk about the originals versus the remakes. So I understand when we look at two movies, for example, one was released in 1936 and the other in like 2000s. Like, I understand why someone may decide to retell this story to new viewers. But why they have decided to do it here? Because, like, not so much time has passed. I understand it's a European movie, and at that time, Hollywood, or like just in general people in America, they weren't very familiar with European movies, unless they were like cinephiles or movie enthusiasts, then probably yes. But just like, why? Why would you take something like Wings of Desire and decide to basically ruin it? Because I personally believe that they have ruined everything that Wim Wenders was able to create in his movie. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please let me know, what do you think about this format? Would you like to see more videos where I compare movies? I personally did. I loved working on this video, and I think it's the first time when I talk in a negative way about one of the movies. I don't want to sound mean. I know what I was trying to say, that it's just a completely different movie. Like, it's in a completely different genre. It tries to tell the same story, but it doesn't work. And I just still don't understand who thought that it was a good idea to even like make City of Angels. But don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. And I will see you again very soon next time.